Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're taking a really fascinating deep dive into, well, one of the oldest and maybe most impactful stories out there, Cain and Abel in Genesis chapter 4. Our guide for this is an incredible source, The Voice That Cries from the Ground, a Hebrew exegesis of Genesis 4, and the fracturing of moral consciousness. So this isn't just retelling the story you think you know. It's more like a linguistic journey, digging right into the original Hebrew words. We want to unearth these deeper layers of meaning, morality, and memory.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating here is that we're going way beyond just a surface reading. Our source, through this really deep analysis of the Hebrew text, the kind preserved in things like the Interlinear Bible, it shows that Genesis 4 is much, much more than a simple crime and punishment tale. It's actually this profound meditation on, well, the limits of moral speech and its possibilities, too. You get situations where silence speaks volumes, where blood literally cries out, and where judgment kind of folds into this unexpected paradoxical mercy.
Right, so our mission for you, our listeners, really pull out those surprising bits of knowledge, the things often lost in translation. We'll explore how specific Hebrew terms, they become like containers, holding immense theological weight, and they show how even fractured, broken language can carry something sacred. You'll get, I think, a unique angle on how violence, exile, even human innovation, they aren't just historical plot points, they're like linguistic thresholds where the divine and the human wrestle for meaning.
And that raises a big question for us today, doesn't it? What can this ancient text really teach us about communication now, about responsibility, maybe even about our own internal struggles? We're going to trace how meaning gets stitched together across ruptured speech, and how often what wasn't said is just as crucial as what was.
Okay, so let's dive into the very start of Genesis 4. It's striking, isn't it, that it doesn't kick off with God speaking. Instead, it opens with a verb. And the human knew Eve, his woman, verse 1. And this is where the Hebrew gets really interesting right away. The word for knew is yada�. Tell us about that word.
Right, yada. It's not just knowing, knowing a fact or information. It signals something much deeper. It's intimate, experiential knowledge, the kind that often involves consequence, transformation, or in this case, generation. So the source highlights how the chapter immediately links this deep knowing with creation and consequence even before Cain's birth.
That really sets a powerful, almost ominous tone. And this pattern, this linguistic tension, it continues with the birth of Cain.
Absolutely. Eve says, I have acquired quantity a man at Yahweh. That quantity root clearly links to Cain's name acquisition, possession. But that tiny word et, it's ambiguous. Does it mean with Yahweh, like she's a co-creator, or from Yahweh, acknowledging a gift? The source points out this grammatical uncertainty, this suspension. It hints at a fracture, maybe a breakdown in communion right from the get-go. It's subtle, but it's there in the language.
A really potent start. And then Abel arrives, and the pattern repeats, but differently. He's sort of born in grammatical subordination, named almost like an afterthought. And his name, Hevel. It's just vapor, breath, something fleeting, right? So Cain is acquisition and Abel is absence.
That's a great way to put it. Cain is acquisition, maybe even a tangled claim. Abel is ephemerality, absence. And if you look at the bigger picture, the Hebrew structure keeps drawing our attention to relationships and identity, not just actions. Both brothers get defined by their vocation. Abel's a shepherd, Roathan. Cain works the ground, adamah. And here's another layer. The root for Cain's work, avad, it doesn't mean work or till. It also carries echoes of service, even worship. So Cain isn't just a farmer, he serves the earth, which becomes incredibly ironic because soon that earth he serves will drink blood, not yield food.
Wow. Okay, that sets us up perfectly for the next key moment, their offerings. The source points out this turning point happens at the end of days, suggesting it's maybe a natural impulse, not a direct command from God.
Exactly, a voluntary act of giving. And the word used for offering is critical. Mincha. Our source emphasizes this isn't necessarily a blood sacrifice, it's a present offering, a tribute. Think of Jacob giving a mincha to Esau to reconcile. Cain brings fruit, an extension of his labor, his service to the ground. Abel brings firstlings, their fat. The text adds qualifiers suggesting quality, richness.
But the text itself, it doesn't judge their motives, does it? It just describes the offerings. It's divine response that creates the split.
Precisely. Yahweh gave heed to Abel and his offering. The verb is sha'ah. It's rare, meaning to turn toward, look with favor, attend. It's quite intimate. And notice, Abel is named before his offering. The source suggests the regard is for the person, the offerer, first.
Okay, so Abel is seen, favored. Then what about Cain?
With Cain, the grammar is almost identical, same structure. But with one crucial addition, lo, not. Yahweh Losha did not give heed to Cain and his offering. Now, this isn't necessarily outright rejection or condemnation, not yet. It's more like non-regard, a withholding of the divine gaze. Cain is simply unseen, and his reaction is immediate and visceral.
Yeah, the text says, Cain burned greatly, Vaichar, like he's internally combusting, and his faces fell, Vayiplu that plural, faces, panim. That's significant, isn't it?
Hugely significant. Panim isn't just about facial expression. It's about presence, orientation, one's whole being before another, especially before God. So his face is falling isn't just him looking glum. It's a collapse of his presence, his connection, his communion with God, a profound disorientation.
So we have this moment before any murder, before sin is even named, of unseen offerings in this fallen presence. And then for the first time in chapter 4, God speaks. But it's not what you might expect, is it? Not immediate judgment.
No, remarkably, it's inquiry. God's first words are questions to Cain. Why has it burned for you, and why have your faces fallen? Lama charalak, velama naflufaneka. That repetition of lama, why? It's rhythmic, searching. It holds a space open. God addresses Cain directly, names his inner feeling that burning, tara, and his outer state, the fallen faces, naflufaneka.
So God isn't condemning the anger itself, but naming it and asking about the collapse of his faces, his presence.
Exactly. It's a major theological moment. The source highlights this as the first time in the Bible God responds directly to human emotion, not just an action or disobedience. He's not rebuking the feeling, but inviting reflection, calling the hidden turmoil to the surface. Our source calls this a kind of mercy that actually precedes law. The grammar is open-ended. Cain doesn't answer, but the invitation just hangs there.
And God speaks again, still not in wrath, but with this really complex conditional grammar. This is verse 7, right? The one that causes so much debate. Is it not that if you are doing good, lifting up, and if not doing good at the portal, sin, or sin offering, is reclining? It gets dense here.
Oh, incredibly dense, and full of interpretive tension, as our source unpacks beautifully. Doing good, T-Tiv, seems clear enough moral rightness. Then sadat, lifting up, lifting what? The face. The offering, the burden of guilt, it's unclear. But the real crux is chatat. It can mean sin, but very often in the Hebrew Bible it means sin offering, a ritual purification. The source argues forcefully that this ambiguity is intentional. It's not a simple warning.
So it might not just be sin is crouching at your door like a demon. It could be. There's a sin offering available right here at the threshold, and that verb rovets, reclining or crouching, like an animal.
Exactly like an animal. A presence with potential motion, maybe menacing, maybe mercifully available. Lapatash, at the portal, at the opening. It evokes a threshold, a point of decision. Then you have teshuka, desire, impulse, longing, only used 3 times in the Hebrew Bible, a powerful magnetic pull, but whose desire is it? Sin's desire for Cain. Cain's. Unclear again. And finally, Timshel Bod, you are ruling in it, or over it. Rule over what? Sin, the impulse, the offering, yourself. The Hebrew resists easy answers. Our source frames this beautifully. The ambiguity is the invitation. God isn't giving Cain a command. He's outlining possibilities.
Wow. Okay, so this intense, ambiguous moment.
Yeah.
It hangs there, and then it leads directly to the first murder. And what's striking, again, as the source points out, is the silence. Cain speaks to Abel, but the text cuts off. It doesn't tell us what was said.
That omission is chillingly deliberate, a theological device. Cain's words are lost, hidden, just like Abel's lifeblood will soon be hidden in the ground. The setting matters too. When they were in the field, Bihaitam Basara, the field. It's open, undefined, maybe outside the immediate protective presence of God, a vulnerable space.
And in that space, filled with unspoken words, Cain rose up against Abel, his brother. Vayakam Quain el Hevel Ashif. The grammar hammers home the relationship, his brother, even as it narrates its destruction.
Yes, the text insists on that bond, even in the act of breaking it. And the verb killed him, Vayahargehu, is stark, simple, direct. No motive given, no psychological explanation. Our source notes how the first death enters history not in war, but linked to worship. Not between strangers, but brothers. Not with clear reason, but surrounded by silence. There's no divine intervention at this moment. What remains unsaid leads to what becomes undone.
The silence leads to violence. Chilling. And then God speaks again, confronting Cain. He asks, where is Abel, your brother? This isn't God needing directions, obviously.
No, it's a call to accountability. It mirrors God's question to Adam back in the garden, where are you? It's about relational location responsibility. And Cain's answer, I do not know, lo yadaḥ, is just dripping with irony. He uses the same root yadaḥ, intimate knowing, that started the chapter, but now he uses it to deny knowledge, to deny responsibility. And that famous deflection, am I my brother's keeper? Hashomer Achianoki. Using shomer, guard, or protector, he sidesteps the whole premise of care.
But the silence is broken, isn't it? But blood doesn't stay quiet. This part, digging into the Hebrew, it's incredible.
It really is. God's response is devastating. What have you done? Listen, the voice of your brother's bloods cries out to me from the ground. Notice bloods, Deme. It's plural. Our source explains this isn't just about the liquid spilled, it's a theological plural. It suggests Abel's entire potential, his future, all the lives that should have come from him, all of it crying out. It's a cosmic scream. And these bloods, they have a qual, a voice, the same word used for God's voice, for thunder. Abel, silent in life, speaks thunderously in death.
And the verb, so akim, they cry out. It's a present participle, right? So it's ongoing.
A continuous stream.
Yes, an unceasing cry of injustice, of spilled futures. And where does it cry? Elai, to me, God says, and minhanama, from the ground. The earth, the adamah that Cain was supposed to serve, now serves as witness and amplifier. Cain didn't just kill his brother, he awakened a sound in creation that cannot be ignored. This is really the theological heart of the passage. Voice from the ground, language resurrected through loss and violence.
Blood cries out. And then comes the judgment. And now, cursed are you from the ground.
Yeah.
The source highlighted the significance of that preposition from. He's cursed from the ground, not directly by Yahweh. That's a key distinction. It's a powerful reversal of Genesis 3. There, the ground was cursed because of Adam. Here, Cain is cursed from the ground. The source of life, the very thing he worked, now rejects him. The ground is almost personified. It opened its mouth to take the bloods of your brother from your hand, Asher Patstat Piha. It actively ingested the violence. The grammar tightly binds the guilt to the physical world, Cain's hand, Abel's bloods, the earth itself.
And the consequence, it connects directly back to his work, his identity. When you serve the ground, it will no longer yield her strength to you. A wanderer and a fugitive you shall be in the earth.
Right. That verb to avad, you work, you serve, links him back to Adam's labor. But now it's futile. The ground withdraws its koka, its strength, its vigor. That relationship is shattered. And those terms, navanad, wanderer, and fugitive, they capture this profound dislocation, both physical and spiritual. He's not executed, but condemned to rootlessness. Disinherited from land, labor, stability, the creation order unravels for him.
So after this sentence, Cain finally speaks again. But it sounds like despair, not really repentance. He says, my iniquity is greater than I can bear. Or is it, my punishment is greater? There's ambiguity there too, isn't there?
There is. Avon can mean iniquity or the punishment for it. He's lamenting the consequences. He's not saying, I did wrong, but this is too much. And he names his fears vividly. Driven from the face of the ground, hidden from God's face, mipaneka, that plural panim again, God's presence. He sees his vulnerability. Anyone who finds me will kill me. The first murderer now lives in fear of becoming a victim of the very cycle he started.
And here comes maybe the most stunning part, the paradox. God responds, but not with more wrath, not with annihilation. He responds with restraint. Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold.
It's a decree against further violence. It establishes that vengeance belongs to God, not humans. It's a warning to others, really, not a blessing for Cain. But the truly radical move is next. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, a sign, a signal. And crucially, it's lest any finding him should kill him. It's a mark not for identification for punishment, but for preservation. Divine judgment somehow pivots to divine restraint. The same God who heard the blood cry now shields the killer. Not to erase the guilt, but to contain the spiraling vengeance. It's deeply paradoxical.
So Cain, marked and spared, but still exiled, departs. He leaves from the presence of Yahweh. Milifne, YHWH. It feels ontological, not just geographic. He settles in the land of Nod, Eretz Nod, which literally means land of wandering. His condition becomes his location. East of Eden, the direction of exile.
But remarkably, life goes on. That verb yadaʄ, to know, it comes back again. The same word that opened the chapter. Cain knew his wife, and she conceives Enoch. The pattern of knowing, generating life, it isn't erased by the judgment or the exile. The same dynamic that birthed violence now births civilization. It's startling.
And he becomes a builder. Bona Er. He builds the first city mentioned in the Bible. This wanderer, this exile, founds a city and names it after his son, Enoch, maybe meaning dedication. He's creating permanence, memory, monuments.
It's such a profound paradox, isn't it? The shedder of blood founds the first society. The rootless wanderer becomes a city builder. The man marked by violence fathers names and structures. It tells us something deep about how civilization, maybe even progress, can emerge from fractured, even violent beginnings.
The story then zooms into Cain's lineage. The names themselves seem weighted, don't they? Like Mehujael, perhaps, smitten by God.
Yes, there are echoes of distance, maybe judgment, in those names. And then comes Lamech. He immediately escalates the rupture. He takes 2 wives, the first polygamy in Scripture,
Yeah.
and the text says he took for himself, emphasizing an individualistic claim, a further breakdown of the relational mutuality Genesis seems to value.
And Lamech's descendants, they're innovators. Yaval, father of nomads and livestock. Yuval, father of music, harp and pipe. Tubal-Cain, forging bronze and iron tools and weapons. So civilization is flourishing arts, crafts, technology. But as the source notes, it seems to be developing apart from the presence of God invoked earlier.
And then Lamech himself speaks. He gives us the first poem since Eden, but unlike Adam's wonder, Lamech's poem is, well, it's a boast, a terrifying one. I have slain a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. He magnifies trivial hurts into reasons for lethal force, and he claims this outrageous impunity. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. He takes God's mark of restraint on Cain and twists it into a personal license for exaggerated vengeance. The line of Cain seems to weaponize language just as effectively as Tubal-Cain weaponizes metal. Divine mercy gets mutated into human bravado.
Okay, so after that dark boast, the narrative makes a sharp turn. It pivots away from Cain's lineage and back to Adam and Eve, and that key verb returns again, yadaḥ. Adam knew his wife again. But the context now is totally different.
Completely different. It's now paired with grief, loss, but also grace. Eve bears another son and names him Seth, from the verb shat, meaning to set, to appoint, to place. And she declares, God has appointed for me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. It directly echoes the seed promise back in Genesis 3. This isn't birth as acquisition, quantity like Cain. It's birth as restoration, as appointment. Life continuing, intentionally placed right on the ground where blood cried out.
And then Seth has a son, Enosh. His name means something like mortal man, frailty, doesn't it? Quite a contrast to the powerful city-building names in Cain's line.
A stark contrast. Enosh carries this sense of human limitation, humility. And right after Enosh's birth comes the quiet climax of the entire chapter. At that time, people began to call upon the name of Yahweh, as Huchel Lukro Bishem YHWH. For the very first time in Genesis, humans aren't just receiving divine speech or making offerings, they are initiating contact, reaching back, invoking the name, praying. Cain's line built cities and forged tools. Seth's line, beginning with frail Enosh, builds remembrance and calls on God. Our source suggests this isn't just reversing Genesis 4, it's redeeming it, finding a path forward.
What an incredible journey through just one chapter. This deep dive shows Genesis 4 is so much more than, bad brother kills good brother. It's like an elegy, an altar, a city plan, a boastful poem all wrapped together, a place where language itself seems to bleed and blood finds a voice.
Exactly. It's where meaning phrase unravels and then somehow gets woven back together, not in perfect clarity, but in echoes, ambiguities, and cries. Every key Hebrew word we touched on, yadaḥ, lama, the plural adamah, they shimmer with this double meaning, testifying to loss but also hinting at possibility. The text keeps speaking, even, or especially, through its gaps.
And the preservation of Cain. It's still stunning. He's not just punished. He's marked for protection. That mark lands on the narrative too, warning against cycles of vengeance. It really suggests that history, civilization maybe, doesn't always spring from perfect origins. Sometimes it grows from the restless, the fractured, the scarred.
But the story doesn't end with Cain's city or Lamech's boast. The final word, the hopeful note, belongs to Eve's grief turned to hope in Seth, the appointed one. And then Enosh, that name, acknowledging human frailty. And with that humility comes the breakthrough. Then it was begun to call upon the name of Yahweh.
This deep dive really reminds us that Genesis 4 doesn't offer neat moral packages or easy answers. It offers, maybe it offers a wound. It invites you, the listener, to grapple with that gap between what's said and what's meant, what's done and what's heard by God. It's in that space, the silent field, the unseen offering, the hidden face, that language gets wounded but maybe also reborn. Not perfect, but crying out.
And that voice of the bloods, our source, implies it still cries out from the ground. Whenever meaning gets lost in power plays, whenever violence shatters communion, whenever a brother or sister is forgotten. But maybe it also rises in hope. In the appointed seed and the frail human, Enosh, who dares to call upon the name, maybe listening for that voice, trying to understand across the gaps. Maybe that's a kind of spiritual practice itself.
So what does this all mean for you? Maybe it's an invitation to just consider the unspoken things in your own life, the cries that maybe go unheard, and the power we all have to give voice, even to what feels fractured or broken.
Think about it. In Genesis 4, a cry of blood, a cry from the ground, ultimately became a call A call to accountability, yes, but also eventually a call to hope, a call upon the name.
Let the cry become the call.